You think Neanderthals were dumb, hunched cavemen who lost the Ice Age? You're wrong. They had brains larger than ours, bones far denser, and lungs built to handle a body strong enough to grapple prey. They survived roughly 300,000 years of winters that would kill you in a single night. And then, around 40,000 years ago, they vanished, and it had nothing to do with the cold.
200,000 years ago, Europe wasn't the Europe you'd recognize.
It was a frozen mammoth steppe stretching from Spain to Siberia, temperatures dropping past 30 degrees below zero, predators roaming in every direction, and the nearest reliable meal sometimes 6 months away. Into that world walked a species built specifically to survive it, the Neanderthal. For 300,000 years, they held on. That's longer than every chapter of recorded human history combined.
Neanderthals didn't just survive the cold. Every part of their body was built to fight it.
Start with the basics. Their bones ran far denser than ours, dense enough that early anthropologists once mistook whole Neanderthal skeletons for something closer to a different, more brutish species. Their chests flared out wide and barrel-shaped, built to hold bigger lungs. In 2018, researchers measured actual rib fossils from a male Neanderthal known as Kebara II, found in Israel, and calculated lung volumes running roughly 20% larger than a modern human of the same size. That's not a guess dressed up as fact. That's a number pulled straight from bone.
Now look at the rest of the frame.
Their limbs sat shorter than ours, cutting down how much heat their skin could bleed into the freezing air, while their noses grew oversized, warming and humidifying that air before it ever reached their lungs. And their brains, measured by actual skull volume, ran larger on average than a modern human brain, paired with eyes built bigger to keep working through an entire winter's worth of darkness.
Every one of those traits existed to answer one question.
How do you keep a body alive in a world built to kill it? But a strong body is useless if you can't eat, and that's where they got terrifying. A powerful body still needs feeding, and in the Ice Age, hunting Neanderthal style meant getting close enough to touch what you were killing.
They weren't runners chasing prey across open plains. They were ambush hunters, closing in on bison, deer, and even young mammoths at close range, then driving a heavy, thrusting spear into the animal by hand rather than throwing it from a distance. Skeletal remains back this up in a strange way. Neanderthal injury patterns look almost identical to modern rodeo riders, full of healed fractures in the arms, ribs, and skull from repeatedly grappling large, panicked animals up close. Their tools matched the job.
Using a method known as the Levallois technique, they shaped a stone core so precisely that a single strike would pop off a sharp, ready-to-use blade. And the industry built around that method, called Mousterian, produced some of the most advanced stone tools in the world at the time.
And they didn't hunt alone.
Small family groups worked together, everyone taking a role in bringing down prey that could kill any one of them individually. Every hunt was a gamble against an animal built to end you. And they took that gamble constantly, because starving was the alternative. If this darker, more brutal side of human history is the kind of thing you're into, Unevolved covers a lot of it. Consider subscribing. Survival wasn't only about the body Neanderthals were born with. It was about what they built with it. In December 2025, archaeologists in Suffolk, England published evidence of a hearth roughly 400,000 years old. Flint tools, heated clay, and tiny fragments of iron pyrite struck together to throw sparks. It's the oldest confirmed evidence of deliberate fire-making found anywhere on Earth, and the people who built it were early Neanderthals. Homo sapiens didn't exist yet. Fire wasn't something we taught them. They mastered it before we ever showed up. They built shelter with the same resourcefulness. Neanderthal sites like Moldova in Ukraine show dwellings built from mammoth bones, layered with animal skins and stitched into tailored clothing, cut to actually fit the body wearing it, rather than just draped over it. And they didn't abandon their weakest. There's a famous Neanderthal skeleton found at La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France, so arthritic and worn down by age that a scientist studying it back in 1911 decided all Neanderthals must have walked hunched over. That's actually where the whole hunched caveman myth came from in the first place. But look closer at that same skeleton, and it tells the opposite story. Healed fractures, most of his teeth gone, arthritis bad enough he couldn't have hunted or even chewed solid food alone for years. He lived on anyway. Someone kept him fed. All of that should have been enough. So what actually killed them? Their bodies were expensive to run. A frame that dense and that muscular needed enormous fuel just to function, with some researchers estimating Neanderthal energy needs at 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day in a cold climate, nearly double what an average adult needs today. That's a body permanently one bad hunting season away from starvation.
They also lived in small, isolated groups, often estimated at only 20 to 30 people, spread thin across an enormous landscape. And unlike the groups that would eventually replace them, they left little evidence of trading tools, materials, or ideas across long distances. When the climate shifted, sharply and repeatedly, near the end of the Ice Age, they had no wider network to fall back on, and nowhere else to go.
And then we showed up. Homo sapiens didn't outlast the Ice Age by being smarter or stronger. We won by being more connected. Where Neanderthal groups stayed small and self-contained, early Homo sapiens built trade networks stretching hundreds of miles, moving tools, materials, and knowledge between groups that had never even met. We also hunted differently, using thrown spears and eventually spear throwers to bring down prey from a distance, while Neanderthals still had to close in and risk their bodies with every kill.
And we didn't fully replace them either. When the two populations met, they interbred, and that history is still written into you. On average, about 2% of the DNA in anyone with non-African ancestry today came directly from Neanderthals.
They survived the ice. We survived the change. That's the real difference. Not being built for one world, but being built to adapt when that world disappears. So here's the question. Did we actually outlast the Neanderthals, or did we just get lucky? Let me know what you think in the comments.